Yo, welcome back to Good Game Reviews. Here to do another game review. And for this week, we have week 4, New England Patriots at Kansas City Chiefs. As you already know, the game was postponed. It was supposed to be for Sunday. It was supposed to be 3:25 Central Standard Time, or for y'all on the East Coast, 4:25. But it was postponed due to COVID-19. I don't want to say outbreaks, but positive testing. I'll just say that positive test results that was popping up on both sides. Uh, on the Patriots side, you have Cam Newton, who tested positive late Friday night, and then apologize. I think his first name is Jordan. I can't remember his last name, but he's a backup quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. He tested positive also, so they decided to move the game forward. I guess one day. They were already talking about it being either Monday or Tuesday. Um, they decided we're just gonna move it ahead one day and set it for 7:05 Eastern Standard Time or 6:05 Central Standard Time. Now, before I start, I know a lot of fans probably disagree with that. There were some who thought that this game should be pushed a little further ahead, kind of like what they did with the Steelers Titans game. In that case, they had more people, popping up as far as like positive testing, especially on the Titans side of the ball. So I guess they felt that was the best move because it was just so many people popping up that they had to move, and it wasn't only players; it was also staff members. So they had to, move that further ahead. Just get ahead of that and get everybody back. In the Patriots case, at least as far as right now, as far as this current time, I don't know what will happen after the video comes out, but as far as right now, the only positive case for the Patriots is Cam Newton, and the only positive case for the Chiefs, as far as I know, is Jordan, the backup quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, so since they did, you know, more testing, and all those tests came back negative, they decided that they're going to move it forward towards Monday, and that's where we are right now. So, as much as we would love to see a Cam Newton, Patrick Mahomes duel, we're just going to have to deal with what we got, you know. So, let's go ahead and get into it. I like to start off with the quarterback position. Anytime I do this, I start off with the quarterback position. It's the most important position. So let's go ahead. For New England Patriots, since Cam Newton will not be starting in this game, the next choice is Brian Hoyer. Now, Brian Hoyer is a longtime vet, especially if you're a Patriots fan. We've seen him for you know multiple years, not consistently. He's been pretty much on and off as far as like the Patriots. He's gone to several different teams, and New England Patriots just happen to be his recent team. This is his third time being with us. Um, he is most likely going to be the starting quarterback, mainly because he won the backup job behind Cam Newton and beat out Jarrett Stidham. So he's going to be the next guy who comes up. I know a lot of talk, at least from fans, we're thinking maybe Jarrett Stidham should be the starting quarterback. But if you go back and look at reports from training camp and look at how they were doing, minus the injury, you could see that Brian Hoyer, while he wasn't doing anything like real flashy or anything like that, he was less turnover prone than Jarrett Stidham was, and this was even before the injury. So I think they feel like this is the best option to go. We got a more experienced guy, a guy who's a little less turnover prone, at least from what we saw during the training camp. We're gonna go with this guy because we feel he's the next best option. Also, you look at the fact that Jarrett Stidham was a healthy scratch for the last 3 games that the Patriots played, and Brian Hoyer was the only other quarterback active during those games. So that gives you your answer. Brian Hoyer is pretty much going to be starting quarterback for the Patriots, and that's the guy we're going to look at. Now, there aren't any stats that we can pull, at least from this season, uh, on Brian Hoyer, but from what we know, he's kind of reliable. You know, don't get me wrong, it's still Brian Hoyer, and we've seen Brian Hoyer throw many picks um, on different teams. But as far as just having a reliable veteran who we know has a good grasp of the system, has been around long enough to see multiple different defenses. Something like what Tom Brady's done. Like, now I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying he's been around long enough to have seen multiple defenses like Tom Brady. He's a seasoned vet, so experience beats out youth in this case. Now let's go ahead and get into the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. We all know what Patrick Mahomes is. We know what he does. The guy's a beast. He's already started off with a good season. He already has 9 touchdowns on the season. He's at 898 yards. Almost 900 yards on the season. So he's balling out. Okay. So far hasn't even thrown a pick yet. So he's not making any mistakes. And not only does he have the ability to just air it out however he feels like it, like no matter where he's standing, no matter how he's standing, no matter if he's on his back foot or he's going to his side or if he's throwing the ball sideways, it doesn't even matter. If he's not even looking, we've seen the no-look pass and all of that. I mean, he just makes whatever throw he wants, and you just have to defend him the best you can. You can't give him anything easy because he's just going to tear you apart. You have to make it, you have to be up on the receivers tight. You have to be in his face constantly and get him down to the ground quick. Don't allow him to scramble for too long because eventually he is going to find somebody open. And if they're not open, he'll probably make them open. So you just have to contain him and then bring him down quickly. Something similar to what the Chargers were able to achieve for a good portion of that game. But that's the route you would have to go if you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. But he's just so good, and man, it's just hard to contain something like this because we haven't really seen somebody play like this, and his style, man, it's just crazy. Not only is he able to just air it out though, he's also mobile. He gets things done on the ground. He can beat you with his feet. He has 80 rushing yards already on the season, so that's something that the Patriots have to watch out for. Don't let him get outside. Don't let him scramble. Don't let him pick up those extra those free first downs. But yeah, that's pretty much what Patrick Mahomes is. And as far as the QB battle, it's no surprise. I'm giving it to the Chiefs. I'm giving it to Patrick Mahomes. Really, I probably would have gave the nod to Patrick Mahomes even if Cam Newton was starting in this game. That's just how good Patrick Mahomes has done so far in this season, plus the past season. So, I mean, that's just the road we're going down. Next, let's move on to one where we can probably discuss it a little bit better, and that is the running back position. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you already know how I do this. I don't look at a single running back, meaning I don't look at the bell cow. I don't look at the main guy who gets the most carries. I look at the whole room as a whole because they don't just put one running back out there. They'll put as many as they need to, whether that be 2 guys, 3 guys, whatever. So we go with the whole room. Let's go ahead and start with the New England Patriots. Now, the New England Patriots leading back would be Sony Michel. So far, Sony Michel, he's had a pretty decent season. He has about, I want to say 173 yards. He has a touchdown on the year. We saw what he did in the Raiders game. He had 2 big runs. I think one was for 38. I think the other one was for 48 or something like that. He took care of business in that Raiders game. He proved that he still has what it takes. Kind of reminiscent to what he did in his rookie season, where he kind of went on that 3-game stretch where he had like 100 yards and like a touchdown in each of those games. So if he can get back into that form, it would. I mean, it'll be greatly appreciated because we saw what he was able to do against the Kansas City Chiefs his rookie year, and one of those games happened to be one of his 100-yard games where he was able to get 2 touchdowns, I think, in that game. So, I mean, we know what he's capable of. We know what he can do. But yeah, Sony Michel, he's had a pretty decent season. 26 carries, 173 yards. Next guy behind him is Rex Burkhead. 19 carries, 83 yards, averaging 4.4 on the ground. Sony Michel, by the way, averaging 6.7 on the ground. J.J. Taylor, a nice find that the Patriots were able to pick up in the undrafted free agency. He has become, kind of like that jolt. When the running game is going a little bit slow, he comes in and he provides that extra jolt, and it kind of gets everything moving, not just on the running game, but just as the offense as a whole. He has 70 yards on the ground, 16 carries, averaging 4.4 also. Look, this running game for the Patriots, man, I mean, along with the additions that they made at the offensive line with draft and whatnot, I think it really did help. It just seems to be working. And even though David Andrews, he's out for right now. He should be back in a little while. He's not out for the entire season. They put him on IR, but he should be back after the bye week, I believe. But yeah, Joe Thuney, he stepped in that center role and he didn't miss a beat. So it's obviously he can play different spots. It's just not just left guard. Winnu, Michael Winnu. 6th-round pick. Guy's been doing. He's been doing well. He's been doing well, especially in the run game. He's just such a big guy. He just mows down people. It's just like that initial point of contact. Like right there, as soon as he makes the block, that's usually where he gets the guys, and just drops down on them and allows just allows these holes to open up. I've liked what I've seen from him. It's been nice. Isaiah Wynn, he's been doing nicely. He's been helping out in the run game too. It's just helped these running backs, get a lot more production. And if you compare it to last year, it's a whole lot better. We got majority of our guys out there healthy. It just looks a whole lot better, and the offensive line as a whole is playing better. As far as the Chiefs go, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously, worth the 1st-round pick. The guy is balling out, man. I already knew he was good, but I didn't know he was going to show out like this so early. He already has 240 rushing yards on the ground, averaging 4.4. He has a touchdown also. 80 yards per game, man. He's beasting out here. It's like, as far as like rookies go, man, he's doing his thing out here. Behind him though, it's not. I don't want to say it's really nothing like really behind him, but it's pretty much the Edwards-Helaire show. As far as like the running back room with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's pretty much the Edwards-Helaire show. Because if you look at the production from other running backs, you got guys, Darren Thompson, 32 yards. That's the next guy right behind him. That's a big difference between 240 yards and 32 yards. Just not a lot. And I guess, they don't really have to put him out there a lot because, you have Edwards-Helaire who can provide, what you need in the running game and also in the passing game. So you don't really need to rely on a whole bunch of different backs. But it's nice to see that depth. It's nice to be able to It's nice to be able to know that you can depend on other guys to step in and get it done every now and then, just in case your number one guy, something happens to him. Knock on wood. But yeah, so as far as the Patriots running back room go, I mean, as far as just the running back side of this, I had to give the advantage to the Patriots, mainly because they just have more going on. They're spreading it out evenly, and all of those guys are they're killing it on the ground. Um, as far as wide receivers go, I don't even have to really get into this too long. I'm gonna go ahead and give it to the Chiefs. Julian Edelman, he's doing his thing. As far as just numbers go, he has the most receiving yards out of any receiver that's about to step out on that field. Believe it or not, he has 259 receiving yards, averaging 17.3 per reception. Is averaging 86.3 yards per game. He's doing his thing. He is killing it in the receiving game. Obviously, the number one. He was the number one last year. He's the number one this year. And he's just that reliable weapon. I think he's still gonna be the same reliable weapon that he was for Tom Brady, that he was for Cam Newton these past few games, and he's gonna be that same reliable weapon for Brian Hoyer. Behind that, I mean, I'm not gonna talk down on them because they're doing it. They're doing their thing, but it's not at the level of what the Chiefs are doing. N'Keal Harry has 145 yards so far. Is averaging 9.7 per reception. And Demir Bird has 99 receiving yards and averaging 11 per reception. But it's still not at the level with the Chiefs. If you look at what the Chiefs are doing, besides Edwards-Helaire, there are four other guys who have at least 100 receiving yards. Now, that's also factoring in Travis Kelce. But still, like there's four other guys who have 100 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill has 220 of them. Sammy Watkins 155. Hardman 117. I mean, Cam Newton is getting the ball. I mean, not Cam Newton, excuse me. Patrick Mahomes is getting the ball out to each of these guys. And especially in Tyreek Hill's case, it's just he's just hard to contain. Like you can't contain this guy the whole game. We saw what the Raiders were able to do with Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman didn't have his best game this past week against the Raiders. He didn't have his best game. It was probably it'll probably be one of his worst games that he's had. It's not. It wasn't what we expect of Edelman, and I think it'll look a lot better going down the road. But he had pretty much his worst game so far this season, and I mean, even though the Patriots were more in tune with the running game, I mean, you still would have wanted to see more from the receivers. With the Chiefs, it just doesn't matter because they're just not. Nobody's really stopping this passing offense. Nobody's containing Tyreek Hill so far for a whole game because he just eventually goes off. Even if you go back and look at the Chargers game, they did a very nice job containing him for a majority of the game, for like at least about 3/4, I want to say. But eventually, he broke out. He got that long pass, that long touchdown pass. I think it was like 70-something yards for a long touchdown. And after that, he just went to work. And, you just can't contain Tyreek too long. It's the same with Patrick Mahomes. You just can't contain those guys too long in the game. Eventually, they're going to break out. And Sammy Watkins, I mean, as far as like a number 2 goes, he's about as good as you're gonna get. At least, looking at what they've been able to do with him. I mean, the guy's doing his thing over there. As far as the Titans, not Titans, but the tight ends, I have to go with the Chiefs. Now, there still isn't a lot of production from the Patriots tight ends. I would like to go back. I would like to lean on depth and say that, maybe the Patriots, they have a little more. But I can't even do that because We haven't seen a lot. We haven't really seen anything from Devin Asiasi. We haven't really seen him get involved in the passing game. Dalton Keene hasn't even been activated in one of these games yet. We just haven't seen anything from these rookies, and the only guy that we have seen anything from is Izzo, who so far hasn't reached over 3 receptions in a game. You look over at Travis Kelce, already on the season, he has 21 receptions. We've only done 3 weeks, at least from these two teams' perspectives. There's only been 3 weeks, and Travis Kelce has 21 receptions. He actually leads the Chiefs in receptions. So when you look at that, I mean, it's not even really like a competition at the tight end spot. There's still some more development that the Patriots got to do as far as getting that tight end room together, or at least getting the guys that they already have a little more involved in the game. You know, we've seen what we've been able to do when we get our tight ends involved in the game. So who knows? Maybe this is the game. Maybe this is the Devin Asiasi game, or maybe this is the Dalton King game. We don't know. We'll just have to see. But until then, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to the Chiefs. Now, for offensive line, rarely am I going to go against the Patriots offensive line, but I am going to go with the Chiefs offensive line. Not too many stats that you can lean on as far as, the offensive line. You really have to go out there and you really have to dig for it. All I can say is Patrick Mahomes, he's only been sacked twice so far this season, which is pretty good. They have pretty much most of their guys in there. They have their starting guys in there. They're doing. I mean, they're doing pretty well as far as the offensive line position goes. They're able to get things done. With Edwards-Helaire back there, they're able to keep Patrick Mahomes up on his feet. Yeah. Not to say that the Patriots offensive line hasn't been able to do the same thing. They've allowed 5 sacks on Cam Newton. But yeah, I mean, they're doing their thing, but I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs O-line is, doing a little bit of a better job. So it's very close. If I could, I would break it into a tie, but I'll just go ahead and give the offensive line position to the Chiefs. As far as defensive ends go, Chase Winovich for the Patriots, he's pretty much the best defensive end that the Patriots have right now. John Simon, he's a nice piece to have. DJ Wise, he had the nice little strip sack in the Raiders game last week with the defensive touchdown. But I think that was more Shalik Calhoun, but he had the defensive touchdown last week against the Raiders. He's been doing his thing. But Chase Winovich has pretty much been the most dominant on that defensive line and the most dominant defensive end so far for the Patriots. However, Kansas City Chiefs, they still, they got that guy over there. They got that guy Frank Clark, man. I mean, he's still over there doing his thing too. So, if Chase Winovich is our best guy, then Frank Clark is their best guy, and their best guy is doing a lot better than our best guy, at least from a statistical standpoint. Not to mention, Alex Okafor doing his thing. I mean, they're just statistically they're doing better. Statistically, they're doing better. Defensive tackle, I don't think I have to really make a case for that. I really think, we could just go ahead and give it to the Chiefs. Chris Jones. We Patriots overall still have a lot to figure out at the defensive tackle position. I think that's probably one of the main weak points that they have. And that's actually one of my major concerns. I had like 4 major concerns for this team. Going in, from least to worst. From least concerning to most concerning. Excuse me. And I had to go in this order. I had wide receivers, tight ends, defensive tackles, and the kicker position in that order. So I had it going that way. I just feel like that's defensive tackle is like right there is the second most concerning thing for me for the Patriots, and we have to get that under control before I can give them the nod in any of these games. So moving on to linebacker. Also, I give this one to the Chiefs. Um, I would love to see Josh Uche come back strong in one of these games. I mean, we're gonna have to wait a little bit before he's able to play again. You know, but once he comes back, I would love to see what he contributes to this game. I would love to see what Jennings can contribute to the team. Um, but so far, uh, Bentley, he's pretty much the leader back there along with Copeland. Just not a lot of like production. They're not making a lot of noise back there, like the linebacking crew was last year. And that I know it's not fair to compare them, but it is what it is. They're not producing like the linebackers were last year. So I had to go with the Chiefs. They're producing a little bit better than what we're doing right now. You know, so that's like looking at sacks, sack yards, total loss of tackles. It is what it is. Um, as far as the secondary as a whole, I decided to go with the Patriots. I decided to go both cornerback and safety position. I decided to go with the Patriots based on production and based on depth. If you look at the depth for what the Patriots have to offer, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones, Jawan Williams, Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, Terrence Brooks, Devin McCourty. Jason McCourty. They it's just like all of those guys are just doing so much as far as just contributing to the game. You got Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips at times, especially Adrian Phillips, acting as those hybrid safety linebacker types. You got Jawan Williams out there covering playing kind of like a safety, covering those big tight ends along with Kyle Duggar also. It's just they're spreading it out a lot of versatility on in the secondary, and they're showing why they're the best secondary in the league, and it isn't just my opinion. You can go ahead and look at the statistics. I believe they lead in takeaways. As far as interceptions, they have more interceptions than what the Chiefs have coming into this game. Yeah, they're doing their thing. And if that's one thing that we can look forward to, we can look forward to the battle, not so far as quarterback versus quarterback, not a Patrick Mahomes versus Brian Hoyer battle. The battle that people will probably most be looking at is Patrick Mahomes versus the secondary. How will the secondary be able to match up against the weapons and be able to cover these weapons, while Patrick Mahomes is throwing to them? We saw what happened with the Seahawks game, yes. And we saw that, Russ Wilson obliterated that secondary in that game. But who knows? Maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe they can get a little more pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Gilmore doesn't get any of those PI penalties that he's been getting so far this season. So I still think, even with all of that, this is the best secondary that we have in the league right now. And that's the battle that people are going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at the Patrick Mahomes battle versus the secondary of the New England Patriots. As far as special teams go, this is a little tricky one. Not a lot of people like to pay attention to special teams, especially when it comes into factoring in, the outcome of the game. But you have to pay attention to special teams. It's very important. And from what we've seen, as far as special teams go, um, in terms of kickoffs and extra points, the Patriots they have more yardage in terms of kickoff yards. In terms of extra points, they're able to make their extra points at a better percentage than what the Chiefs are able to make it at. As far as the punt returns and the field goals, however, that's where the Chiefs have the edge at. Especially in terms of field goals, because Nick Folk, he's 4 for 6 on field goals. He's good on 20 yardage field goals. He's good on those 30 field goals in the 30s. But when it comes to anything dealing with like the 40s and the 50s, I mean, you can just forget it, because the Patriots are probably going to try to go for it on 4th down. If it's 4th and 5, they'll probably go ahead and try to go for it on 4th and 5 instead of like relying on Nick Folk to kick a 48-yard field goal or a 50-something yard field goal. They're not going to allow Nick Folk to do that, probably. At least not a lot. Because we just know who Nick Folk is. And he's just not that guy. Butker, however, not a lot of problems in terms of field goals. I think he has like one attempt in terms of the 40-yarders, and he missed one. But in terms of 50-yarders, he had 2 in that Chargers game. 58 made both of them. So, I mean, the guy, yeah, he's got a leg on him, and he's definitely a lot more accurate than Nick Folk is. So, if I can give anything to the special teams on that side of the ball, it's that. Punting duties, I believe Jake Bailey is a little bit better. As far as like net average yards, he's a little bit better. Down in the balls in the 20s, he has 4. He has 4 down in the 20s. I believe Tommy Townsend, I want to say that's how you say his name. He has 3 down in the 20. As far as return yardage on punts, Chiefs 12.7, Patriots 8 is pretty much in that range in the single digits. 8.5. So in terms of being able to stop returns, Patriots have done pretty well on that. You got Matthew Slater back there. You got Justin Bethel back there, doing his thing. Having those 2 guys as your gunners, you can pin, especially with Jake Bailey being able to put the ball behind the 20-yard line, behind the 10-yard line at times. It does a lot in terms of field position, and field position can it can do a lot for your team when you're trying to win a game. So I look at that factor, and that's why I went ahead and I gave the special teams to the Patriots, mainly because it's just in terms of like who has more going for them on the special teams. Now as far as kicking, I mean, it's not even really a competition. But in terms of everything else, it's a little bit more debatable. You can look at the numbers, and Patriots just come out a little bit on top in terms of just special teams statistics. So I went with Patriots on that one. Now the last one, a lot of people don't pay attention to. This is probably one where you just say, I'm pretty much done with this. This one doesn't really mean anything, but probably one of the most important out of this whole list, coaching. Now, Bill Belichick is 2-1 against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady isn't here anymore, so I can't use Tom Brady in this statistic, but Bill Belichick, he's still the consistent as far as this. Not consistent, but the constant. He's 2-1 against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We've seen what he's able to do early on in the game. He's very good at keeping the Chiefs down early, especially the first quarter, that first quarter and the second quarter, and even though it pretty much gets wild pretty much from then on, and at the second half with the third quarter and the fourth quarter, and we've seen it go to overtime, and if not for just a simple coin flip, we could be looking at a totally different story right now. But it is what it is. Bill Belichick 2-1 against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So I just decided to go with Bill Belichick on this one. I decided to give this one to the Patriots. Before I give my verdict, I will say this. Now, if you've been paying attention, you see that the Chiefs have come on top. They come out on top as far as like all the things that they have as far as advantages. Offensively, it's not even close. They just outmatched the Patriots offensively, and if we were looking at it last year, maybe the Patriots have the edge defensively, but even defensively, the Chiefs have the edge. Their front seven is a lot better than our front seven. I think the only edge that we really have in terms of defense is the secondary, and Baltimore has a good secondary too, but you can only cover those receivers for so long. But that's pretty much the battle that people are going to be looking at anyway. But I will say this. If it's one thing that the Patriots could possibly do, if they want to pull an upset, I have the Chiefs winning this game, but if it's one thing that the Patriots can do in terms of pulling the upset, look at the Chargers model. Look at the Chargers model, and not just the Chargers model, but look at every game that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid lost. The main common factor in all of those losses is the second quarter. If you keep them down, and I'm not just saying like keep them down like 10 points. No, it's got to be 3 or less. 3 or less points in the second quarter. If you keep them down 3 or less in the second quarter, there's a good chance that you can come out on top in this victory, especially if you control the time of possession. If you control the time of possession, you keep them to either 3 or just pretty much scoreless in the second quarter, you can come out on top in that game. And if you need proof, just go ahead and go and look at the victories that the Patriots had against the Chiefs. Go ahead and go back and look at the victories that the Patriots had against the Chiefs. In each of those victories, they kept the Chiefs down to either 3 or less in the second quarter. And they were able to come out on top. Even though the Chiefs were able to pull back into the game and score a whole bunch of points, and then the Patriots had to, match score for score with them, they were able to control the time of possession, and they were able to dominate in the second quarter. That's the key to winning this game. That's pretty much, if you want to see an upset, that's where you can expect an upset. So I'll urge, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. But if you want to expect an upset, if the Patriots want to upset the Chiefs, that's pretty much what they're gonna have to do. They're gonna have to dominate them in the second quarter, and probably keeping them down 3 points or less. Probably not gonna be enough. They're probably gonna have to score at least 15 points, either 12, like somewhere in those lower double digits. I would say possibly 14. So find a way to get 2 touchdowns in that second quarter. Keep them down to 3 or less. Should have a good chance of winning the game. That's just my thoughts on it. Also, you got to do a good job in the first quarter as well. But especially in that second quarter. But that's all I got for this game. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Next week, we'll have the Denver Broncos. Hopefully, Cam Newton will be back. According to reports, he's asymptomatic. So, if he tests negative, I believe it's twice after this. Once they do the test again, they'll do it. And if he comes back negative, then he should be able to, go by week 5 and be there for the Dolphins game. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Good test results. He's asymptomatic, so that's good. I believe he's doing well. So yeah. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until next time, I'm out.